What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now, Back to the Past. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to take a look at Detective Pikachu. I played the game for the very first time this year in 2023, and I honestly played it because of Detective Pikachu Returns. The game comes out on October 6th, and it's not at the top of my wants list, and I gotta be honest, after playing the first Detective Pikachu game, I can't exactly say I'm like madly excited for this game, or this game is at the top of my must playlist. It's a game I might check out. It's a game I might try maybe in like December or January when gaming is a little bit more dead. But I will say this, Detective Pikachu is a pretty okay game, at least at times. At other times, I think it's rather not good. And one of the themes that I want to kind of keep throughout this video, and we're going to go through over the entire game here, but the movie I actually think is better than the game. And when the movie came out back in 2019, I actually saw it. I remember pretty vividly going to see this movie in theaters, and I remember liking it. I didn't love it. I didn't not like it. I thought it was fine. And I remember thinking, okay, well, you know, this is based off of the game. Never played the game. After playing the game, it's actually almost a modern miracle that the movie happened in the first place, and that the movie, you know, there's so many changes between the game and the movie, and I truly believe it's all for the best. I think the movie did more than I ever could have imagined with the plot of the game, and I think the reasoning there is because they changed a lot of it. The reason the movie is actually so much better than the game is they kept very, very little of what the actual plot is of the game. There's some stuff, obviously, Tim Goodman and Pikachu, and the fact that Tim is the only one that can hear him or, you know, understand him, and detective work, obviously, but the idea of Tim's dad, right? What's going on here? What's going on with R? Why are the Pokemon being so aggressive and freaking out? And, you know, who's kind of behind it? Mewtwo's influence into it. And again, the movie, I think, takes specifically even that part, the Mewtwo part, the parade part, you know, towards like the ending of the movie. I think it does a lot of really cool things with it, and way more than the game ever did. But like, I don't want to drag the game too far down, at least not to start this video, because I will say the middle of this game is actually rather good. I think this game has a pretty terrible opening and a pretty terrible closing, but the middle of this game, I actually found myself to be strangely addicted to it. Even kind of going backwards, the cruise ship, the entire mission arc, I thought was actually really, really good. There's a couple areas, including the science center. I don't know, I forget the actual name of the place, but when you're looking into that, I think there's some really cool levels right in the middle of the game. There's some interesting characters. There's almost some interesting twists. You know, when this game does things the best, it resembles to me, like Danganronpa is the best of all of these kind of murder mysteries or like whodunit kind of things in terms of the gaming sphere, at least, right? So at its best, Detective Pikachu, it doesn't get close. I think Danganronpa is kind of in a league of its own, but it's actually rather okay in terms of there's always like one or two twists. It's not necessarily right in front of your face. Like, you have to think a little bit. It is kind of a weakness I did find, though, going throughout this game, where I did find most of the levels were too in your face and were too like, okay, you clearly know what's happening here. You clearly know who the culprit is. Let's just kind of get to the end of it, including even, you know, the first level of this game is a very menial task that's not important, and yes, it's getting you used to the controls and how to form an investigation, but I couldn't maybe think of a worse opening level to start a game. You know, you think about time, and when you play a game and you say, okay, well, you know, the beginning's make or break, and how many hours does it take to get into a game until it gets good? The game doesn't take that long to get good. It maybe takes like 2 or so hours, but the beginning is just so slow, so boring. The task isn't important. Nothing's important there, that it's like, okay, well, I guess I have to go through this incredibly bad, I'll just say it, bad level to get to like the better stuff later, if there is better stuff. And again, there is. I think even the film production, the GNN kind of crew set, I think that level is extremely, extremely cool. That's maybe the biggest whodunit mystery of the entire game. There's multiple stages, there's multiple things that happen, there's multiple potential culprits that it could be, that even myself, I was fooled. I didn't know necessarily who it was, and it's actually really cool. So when the game is at its best, I think it is making you kind of question, okay, is there going to be a twist? Is it necessarily who I think it is? at its worst, it's right in front of your face. So in terms of the more specific gameplay, I respect it because you got to think, okay, well, who's the target audience for this game? To be fair, the target audience for Detective Pikachu is most likely not me. Now, I would still say, in terms of a negative, I don't really know who the target audience is because I would probably wager a pretty solid bet. I have a 9-year-old daughter. I think if I gave her this game to play and to try to figure out, I don't know if she would immediately be able to keep up with it in terms of the investigation and piecing things together. I feel like it's for people older than that. But then once you get into like your teenage years, or maybe, your late teenage years, I also don't really think the game's for you because I think it's too easy, or it's got too many fail-safe kind of mechanisms where you can fail as many times. You can fail a question as many times as you want. You can fail picking which person you think it is. You can fail literally anything. Also, you can just have Pikachu do the majority of the work for you. If you have all of the evidence, you can do the inspiration bolt, and Pikachu will just do it for you. So it's not, I'd say, for like older teens, because I think it would still be too easy. It was too easy for me, but it's probably too hard for like younger kids. So is this made for like 10 to 13-year-olds? That's kind of it. I don't know. I honestly don't know who this is made for, but the mechanics are pretty okay, especially when it gets going and you are trying to form these cases, and that's what they are, right? So at the bottom of the screen, cases, and you figure out, okay, well, who's doing what, or what tools are used for this. Again, it gets pretty okay in some of the better levels in the middle of the game. The ending is, oh man, the ending is very disappointing. It was about as, I don't even know how to describe it. I'm almost at a loss for words, which rarely happens. It is such an anticlimactic thing. The final level in general is not much at all. In fact, you just go around and talk to every single person. That is maybe a little bit of a weakness of this game, is generally you do just go around and talk to everybody, and that kind of figures everything out. But in this final level, you talk to literally everybody. You find out where R is. You do a mini game, which is not really a mini game. It's just the tapping of buttons or the quick time events that the game does. You find out who the ultimate culprit is. You do one quick time event thing. Pikachu gets his powers, and you're done. Which is kind of disappointing because I actually think the dynamic of Tim, of Pikachu, even of like Amelia, I think there's actually some pretty good characters in this game. And again, doing it in reverse, like watching the movie first and then playing the game, Pikachu, I think, was actually really, really, in terms of the voice and stuff, really well done in the movie. It matched the game. I think Pikachu in this game is really clever, is really cool. And I gotta say, as I've been kind of bashing this game, throughout the entire video, I do respect it for trying something new. Like in terms of, again, the investigation, and you can talk to the humans and you can also talk to the Pokemon, but Pikachu will kind of translate it for you, and oftentimes they know more information than the human knows. And the entire, story is integral to actual Pokemon, right? Again, it's a substance that makes them go crazy, but they're oftentimes very respectful, very nice. Like, even when their owner doesn't, or their master or whatever, when they don't want to give you an answer, the Pokemon oftentimes will. Like, it's a really cool kind of like side story of like, I don't know, it's not gym battles. It's, it's not Ash. It's taking it out of that, kind of environment a little bit. I respect that quite a bit. I respect a Pikachu that talks like this. The voice wasn't off-putting. Now, again, maybe it's because I did the movie first, then the game, but I actually kind of liked Pikachu's personality. I liked him and Tim. Again, one of the more bigger disappointments was just that the story of his dad and stuff, that wasn't nearly as fleshed out as it was in the movie. I was honestly surprised. I was also surprised of the lack of using Mewtwo. They use some of it. There's a little bit of that, but there's very, very little overall in terms of his impact on you or on the story or being cool in any way. He's really not. It's cool to look at. It's cool to look at a lot of the Pokemon in this game, but specifically Mewtwo doesn't do all that much. So I don't know. It's this was definitely a mixed bag, I gotta be honest. And that, again, that kind of is disappointing because going into this game, I'll be honest, I wanted it to win me over to the franchise. I thought it did better than it actually did. It sold well. The ratings, it got like a 70, 71. I don't think critics were all that, pleased with it, which I kind of actually second that. I think that actually a 7 out of 10 is probably where this game should lie, because it's not a 9 or a 10 out of 10. It's also probably not like a 3, 4, 5. Like, it's better than bad, but it's also worse than like good or great. But I went into this thing hoping, okay, well, again, like the second game kind kind of surprising, at least to me. Like, again, like, I'm not in the know of a lot of like Nintendo rumors or leaks, so when I hear a new Detective Pikachu game's coming out, I also thought the franchise was bigger than what it was. I thought a couple of things. I thought, number one, there were more than one game, okay? Not like yesterday, but like I'd say a few years ago, if you quiz me on this, I thought there was more than one Detective Pikachu game. That's the first thing. Second thing, I thought the game had come out earlier than it did. This game is actually not all that old at all. Came out in Japan, I believe, in 2016, and then came out everywhere else in 2018. So not all that old. And then also when they made the movie, that was just a year after the rest of the world's launch, so 2019. So those were kind of two things. I thought it was a franchise, like it was longer than one game. I also thought that it released like 10, 15 years ago, and they were just getting around to the movie. So I don't know. I was hoping it would like surprise me a little bit and get me excited for the second game. I gotta be real, it doesn't make me excited for the second game. Even if it's better than this game, it's worth checking out probably eventually, but it's definitely not like, it comes out I think a day after Assassin's Creed. It comes out in October, where you got Spider-Man, Alan Wake, and all these games I talk about every day on my other channels. So Pikachu does not rise, the ranks of it. I thought this game could do that, but ultimately it really didn't. But it was, again, I don't want to diminish it. At its best, this game is a fun time. At its best, I actually was like, okay, they are doing some pretty cool detective work things. There's always a twist. You can always kind of see it coming. You always see most of this game coming. But at its best, it is rather fun. You do feel like a detective. You do feel like you're putting things together and solving parts to the puzzle, which then get you to when you gather everybody up and you say, okay, here's what happened. Like, I'm going to walk you through the entire story. I like that. I think at its best, it does that rather well. But again, for whatever reason, they decided to do the dumbest opening mission, I think, of existence. And then the ending is just kind of boring, kind of lame, and it doesn't, like, nothing really happens in terms of, like, a shock value. And you're like, oh, it's over. Oh, well, the movie did the ending way better than, or at least it was just bigger. I don't know if that necessarily means it's better, but I think it was. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.